In the Gaelic parts of Scotland and Ireland, they have something called a ceilidh. Now everyone thinks of ceilidh as in a ceilidh dance, which is fantastic. but a real ceilidh had much more than dancing.
Absolutely.
So in a real ceilidh you'd have maybe dancing going on one part of the house, you'd have musicians sitting around the fire, you'd have people improvising poetry, you'd have the children playing, you'd have people going out and meeting their secret loves around the corner, and all kinds of things going on. And you would have storytelling. This is the time when a lot of the old stories would be told. So I thought, since this is a little bit like a ceilidh, and since last time we didn't have a dancing at the end, I would tell a Scottish story. And this is a nice telling. This is like a book I've actually got for Patisserie out of the library. It's quite nice. So I'm going to tell a story from the west coast of Scotland. It's called Linn and the Fairy Queen. You know this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
This book tells them nice. And particularly, I don't know if you know this, but in 3 weeks' time they're having a really famous, beautiful Kurdish harp player coming over, which will be playing here in the evening. I think it's the 9th of September. So we'll spread this a bit more afterwards on the email. But so this is a story about a harp player as well. So. Linn was the harper of all harpers. His fingers made music like jeweled raindrops, like moonbeams on water, like sunlight on young green leaves. And his singing was like all the birds of the air on a fresh May morning. When he played in the woods, the animals gathered to listen, and when he played by the hearth, the girls flocked around like starlings on a roof ridge. But the only girl Linn had eyes for was Janet, and in the velvet dark of a June evening, he asked her to marry him. "For you are the missing golden string of my harp," he said to her. And Janet promised that she would marry him in 7 nights, as soon as she had woven and sewn her bridal gown, whether her father agreed or not. Linn was so happy, he went into the woods to compose a new song in honour of his new bride. But he had clean forgotten that it was the 7th Midsummer's Eve, when the fairies open their mounds, their sacred hills, and ride abroad in the world. As he sang and played on his harp, there was a faint jingling of bells and a thudding of hooves, and a golden mist moved through the woods towards him. When he had finished his song, he looked up, and there was a beautiful lady standing in front of him, dressed all in shimmering green lace, with pearls on her fingers and in her hair. Linn swept a silver cord along his harp and bowed. "What may I do for you, my lady?" he asked. "You may come and play at my midsummer banquet for 7 nights," she said, holding out her white hand. "For you are surely the best harper I have ever heard." "Is it far?" asked Linn. "For I'm to be married to Janet in 7 nights, and I don't want to be late." "Not far at all," laughed the lady. "Just a little way along by the rowan grove, in fact." So Linn got up on a white horse and rode by the beautiful lady through the rowan grove and down through grassy doors that opened into a green mound. Deep into the earth he rode, never looking back when the doors closed behind him. And that was the last that were heard of for 7 years. Janet grew pale and white with unhappiness when her harper did not appear on her wedding night. She laid her wedding gown in a chest and went about her work in the house. But although many men asked to marry her, she told them all that she was promised to Linn the harper. "Nonsense," said her father at last, when the 7th year after Linn's disappearance was approaching. "You will marry Donald the blacksmith on midsummer's morning. He is a good man." "He may be a good man," said Janet, "but I shall marry none but Linn." "Obstinate girl," shouted her father. "Obey me or you will be turned out of the house." But Janet turned and walked away, humming a tune that Linn had made for her. On Midsummer's Eve, Janet got into her wedding gown and walked towards the river. All at once she heard a jingling of bells and a thudding of hooves, and she saw a golden mist coming down the road towards her. She knew at once that it was the fairy host, and she hid behind a bush till they passed. But who should she see riding beside the Fairy Queen but her own Linn? Rage filled her heart, and she remembered what her old grandmother had taught her. If you want something that belongs to the fairies, hold on till time 7 changes, and it shall be yours. So she leapt out and dragged Linn off his fairy horse and into her arms. The Fairy Queen screamed. Her beautiful face changed to that of an angry beast, and she pointed her wand at Linn. "What I have I hold," she croaked. "But not if it was mine first," shouted Janet firmly, clinging on to Tam. As Tam changed first to a slithering snake, then to a biting rat, then to a pecking eagle, then to a clawing wildcat, then to a slippery salmon, then to a tearing boar, and finally back into his own dear self. The Fairy Queen galloped away, shrieking her defeat, with her host trailing behind. "Janet," said Linn, as he rubbed his eyes and kissed her, "where have I been?" "A long way away, my dearest Harper, but my gown is ready now, and we will be married in the morning," said Janet, kissing him back. Thank you.